This is ANN News Brief.
Rights groups have released 2 new reports warning Tanzania about shrinking space for freedom of expression. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International say new laws passed by President John Magufuli since coming into power in 2015 have repressed reporting and restricted the work of the media, non-governmental organizations and opposition groups. They say the laws have led to the arrest of at least a dozen journalists and the closure, suspension or punitive fines for more than 10 newspapers and radio stations on accusations ranging from publishing fake news to sedition. Amnesty International Tanzania researcher Roland Iboli said at an event in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, that President Magufuli must carefully reflect on the government record of ruthlessly quoting the country's human rights framework and repeal all oppressive laws being used to clamp down on dissent. He added that Magufuli should urgently end human rights violations and abuses. The 2 organizations have urged the Tanzanian government to immediately and unconditionally drop all charges against journalists and politicians who have been arrested simply for exercising their right to free expression and association, including a top international investigative journalist, Eric Kabendera, that is facing charges. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has denounced on Saturday an attempt to provoke an ethnic and religious crisis after violence killed 67 persons in demonstrations last week. After winning the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has seen his reputation put to test following recent violence in his country that led to the killing of dozens of people last week during protests when supporters of an activist, Jawar Mohammed, took to the streets. Abiy said in his first statement since clashes ensued between citizens and security agencies that the crisis could get even worse if the Ethiopians do not unite. A head of the police in Roma State, Kafilu Tafera, reported a death toll of 67 persons, including 5 police officers. We'll be right back.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow this story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
4 Burundian journalists have been charged with undermining state security as Burundi's government clamps down on journalists and human rights groups ahead of elections in 2020. The journalists and their driver were early arrested. Their newspaper and Human Rights Watch say the journalists from domestic news website Iwasu and their driver had traveled to report on violence in the northwestern province of Bubanza when they were arrested on Tuesday. The local newspaper reported the 4 Iwasu journalists and their driver were arrested and then questioned by police before being charged with complicity to undermine state security and being transferred to Bubanza Central Prison. Several local radio stations and media houses are reported to have been closed by President Pierre Nkurunziza's government, and many journalists have fled the country. That is ANN News Brief. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Lucy Ademi.